Well, hello, this is me again. Today is September 20th, 2023. It's Wednesday, and let's get to our goal, so to speak, without any further procrastination. And let me show you something. This is U.S. Embassy in Yerevan, Armenia. And if you look at it, it's actually not all of it, but it's actually second largest U.S. embassy in the world. First, of course, being the famous Green Zone, so to speak, in Baghdad, Iraq. So one question which anybody who has any kind of common sense left has to ask in this particular case is why such a huge embassy and a huge number of personnel in the country with population of barely 2.3 million. It's smaller than one of the Moscow boroughs. And then suddenly, and the country with really pretty much non-existent resources. There are few of them like gallium, they say, but it doesn't matter. Well, why? Well, the explanation is actually very simple. United States needs to maintain, obviously, its presence in Southern Caucasus in order to continue to conduct the only thing United States can do, because United States cannot fight a modern combined arms war against the serious enemy. So what they do the indirect strategies. In some sense, it's kind of reminiscence of the big game, which was at some point of time described even by Rudyard Kipling, but the point is that actually the other reason being Armenian diaspora being very, very influential in the United States and in France, for example. And that is a very funny thing, because Armenians in and of themselves are torn nation. Actually, Russia has a larger number of Armenians living in Russia proper than in Armenia itself. But people who live in Armenia, they continue to elect Mr. Pashinyan, who is, of course, the Soros creature. And obviously, the main reason for election of Mr. Pashinyan, because of those non-stop promises that influential Armenian, French, and American diaspora will help. And they want to see, of course, Armenia as part of NATO and part of the European Union. Well, if they want this, of course, it's up to them, but the point is that today, after all this, and now we have the information that some of the Russian peacekeepers in Nagorno-Karabakh has been killed, been ambushed, who knows by who, but looks like not Azerbaijan, because now Russia and Azerbaijan conduct their joint investigation. And Mr. Peskov, the spokesperson for Kremlin, have been more than explicit today when he was saying this. And as you can see yourself, he talks about, well, which was basically expected from a position of Russia, which tried for many decades to kind of settle the issue, but you know, official Yerevan didn't want to. And Peskov said there is no reason to talk about ethnic cleansing in Karabakh, at least not yet, but I don't think so. It will be there. And here, speaking to media, to the first channel 1 of Russian television, Peskov said, of course, Karabakh is an internal affair of Azerbaijan, he said, answering the relevant question. And Azerbaijan operates on its territory, which is recognized by the leadership of Armenia. And this is the thing which, of course, Western media and all kinds of people from Armenian diaspora wanted to obfuscate for everybody. That Nagorno-Karabakh, while even in the Soviet times, was the part of Azeri Republic. So, and this is the fact which you cannot erase, because yes, Nagorno-Karabakh is the internal Azeri affair. I don't think so there will be any ethnic cleansing of Armenians, because official Baku already introduced the plan of the integration of those Armenians who want to basically remain in Nagorno-Karabakh into the Azerbaijani society, and those who do not want to, I mean, you know what, Yerevan, let them deal with this, because they can actually, you know, move those people who want to move back to Armenia. And this story is long and tedious one, but you know what, Russia finally stated, you know what, done with this. And of course, the direct or indirect, rather, strategy of the United States was to light as many hot spots around Russia as possible. But then again, do not forget, as I always repeat, same as with Europe, Armenians were willing participants of this whole spectacle. There were more American flags flying. If you take a look at what is happening now in Yerevan or prior to this, you see it's primarily American flags. It's primarily talking about, how Russian, occupies, and of course Russia has that base in Gyumri, have to leave Armenia, and, it's been going on and on and on, and yesterday, Armenians, protesters in Yerevan blocked the Russian embassy, and actually a Russian ambassador in Yerevan stated, we have taken note of the calls for a protest really near a Russian embassy in Armenia. After their appearance, the diplomatic mission was blocked first partially and then completely. Normal functioning is still impossible, the diplomatic mission said. So this is kind of how Armenians have the attitude towards Russians, and of course, if you're Russian visiting Armenia, they will always remind you that they were brothers in Christ. Well, that might be true, but the point is that actually Armenians want Russia to fight for them. Well, not gonna happen. And of course, they did everything they possibly could in the last 30 years to make sure that Russia stated enough is enough, so there you go. In the end, it is Azerbaijan's land, and that's just the way it is. It is prescribed and subscribed, so to speak, in the official documents. And that's about it for today in terms of this. Well, it's not significant, really, believe me. In terms of the events, because Azerbaijan obviously has a very serious dominant military power to deal with this issue, plus Iran turned out to be very kind of neutral yesterday. Of course, they called on the peaceful resolution, of course they called on the diplomatic solution, as every single side of this process calls on, but I don't think so United States will be able, and Britain of course will be able to light up the Southern Caucasus. Plus, the only thing they can do is to do the provocations, as for example ambushing Russian peacekeepers, and then do some provocation, and many will gladly do it in Armenia, against Russian base in Gyumri. They basically provoke Russian servicemen in military base in Gyumri constantly, so, well, you know what, let them deal with this. So, and that brings us to what I've been wanted to also stress about Armenia in conclusion, that Armenia even asks now United States to intervene, in Karabakh. Well, and the diplomat appealed to U.S. President Joe Biden, French President Emmanuel Macron, and EU leaders asking them to condemn Baku. Well, Baku states that they attack only military targets, which seems to be the case, and Russia and official Moscow confirm it. So, and that's it for today. We'll see how it goes. It's a very fluid, basically development there. But let Armenia deal with their own Maidan and see who else will come. But Pashinyan, being an American stooge, goes without saying that he did everything possible to finally close the issue of Nagorno-Karabakh, which Moscow, by the way, applauding, because finally this pain in the butt, finally disappears. Now, to those British and those, so to speak, other guys who really think that they are so great and so amazing. And it used to be that, and I've been on the record so many times, and I write those constantly. It used to be that British intelligence, MI6, have been kind of respected around the world, not least through of course, the basically propaganda, of all kinds of the movies, but it doesn't mean that there were no good specialists. And of course, the famous Chatham House, which is of course the think tank, the brain behind the, British monarchy and United Kingdom, statehood. Actually, it's not. And one of the reasons that we can talk today about the full degeneracy of not only UK but the overall intelligence and other structures in the combined West is the basically the how to put it, Chatham House, yet another report which came out relatively recently, and it's called How to End Russia War on Ukraine. It was actually on the 27th June, but there is another thing which they made it public, and here comes this thing which absolutely explains to you why those people are morons. And to demonstrate to you what it is just let me show you something, what they did. Here they are. So they explain what this report is, and they speak it, and these are the people who are supposed to be specialists in any field, which they are not. And this is my point, which I already stated, that basically any humanities field, any elite, so to speak, exceptional universities in the West, they prepare basically frauds, because they are being run by frauds. And here we have the international response to Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, while impressive in many ways, remains inadequate to the task and dangerously wobbly. Russia's wider threat to the rules-based international order is also insufficiently acknowledged. Well, the problem, of course, with these guys from Chatham House, that they cannot acknowledge anything. They cannot acknowledge their own bowel movement, because they are stupid. And I mean, when you read this is guys high school level. And let me tell you, they come up with several scenarios of how to end Russia's war on Ukraine, and they write about, fallacy, why this cannot happen. They have several scenarios there, namely 9, and they write about how to settle now all wars and the negotiating table. Then they say, nah, it's not going to happen. Then Ukraine should concede territory in exchange for peace. No, it shouldn't. Ukraine should adopt neutrality. No, it shouldn't. And so when you read this, it's like, and when you begin to look who wrote it, let me tell you, it's unbelievable. And that explains to you why nothing works in the West anymore. I mean, whatever is left, which is working, I mean, actually, it probably runs on its own, and thanks to people from the middle-level management and engineering and lower-level people who actually run things. Those guys on the top elites, and especially in the business of thinking, they have no brains to think up anything. And here's one of the reasons, for example. When we look attentively at one of the CVs of those people, including one of the, British ambassador to Moscow in 2007, why didn't they, refer to the records from 19th century to actually ask opinions of those people? But here it is. This is Orisia Lutsevich. And she is one of the, deputy director, Russia and Eurasian program, head of the Ukraine Forum. Actually, all of them, those people who write to a Chatham House and work there, they all are part of the Ukraine Forum. That means basically they sit there and think how to, make Russia, suffer. And so look at her. That's her background. She has master's degree in international relations from Lviv State University and in public administration from the University of Missouri. In other words, she has no education whatsoever. And this goes to all those people in Chatham House who continue to present to us all kinds of the wet dream scenarios, because they do not understand the subject. They have no basically intellectual and educational toolkit to get it. And here's another one. Here's the guy, he also some kind of the banker, and the guy talks about, the scenario which he says, no, this cannot happen because we should prevent it, that the idea of the West that this is costing too much and the West needs to restore economic ties with Russia. The guy who never had held a day in any job, and he's again banker, he worked in all kinds of banks, which basically are for the British, for example, it's primarily laundromats, they laundry money there. And this is what the guy writes, and this is Timothy Ash, Associate Fellow, Russia and Eurasian Program. He has no clue about Russia, he has no clue about the basically processes in Eurasia, but that's what he writes, that Western budgetary support for Ukraine since February 2022 has totaled around 47 billion, while military assistance is estimated to have cost around 50 billion. Thus far, Putin restrictions on energy trade in response to Western support for Ukraine are estimated to have reduced GDP growth in the EU by around 1 percentage point in 2022. So not only he is full of crap, I mean, as any kind of expert, he is also full of crap in terms of saying that it was actually Putin restrictions, because we all know that Mr. Putin personally blew up the Nord Stream pipelines, and that he was Mr. Putin who forced actually European Union to basically refuse Russian energy in their, pathos-ridden, strive towards the independence. So that's your level of the intelligence reporting. And when you look at those people, I mean, they won't be able to hold conversation with any serious professional. All of them, without exception, including those British ambassadors who have no clue. As I already stated, when you have persons who have been the ambassador in Russia in 2007, that means you might as well, as I already stated earlier today, you might as well refer yourself to the British ambassadors and British diplomats of 19th century. The result will be absolutely the same. And the question, of course, is that those are incompetent hacks. And when you have your whole political elite and government elite, most of which are hacks, then that's the result you have. And basically this to demonstrate to you how, if we talk about British and basically how stupid they are, here it is. This is 2012. Remember this? Yes, the beginning of the end of Putin, 2012, The Economist. Again, it's a rag, it's basically tabloid, which has the same old incompetent hacks who write for it. And when you look at this and you look at the record of predicting something, those people have no clue. And as the result, everything like this is being projected on the internal life of the European and United States, and European nations and the United States. Yeah, sure, it was 2012, 11 years ago, and as you can see yourself, Mr. Putin doesn't want to end his presidency of his tenure, if you wish. And that's the quality, or rather lack thereof, of the political elite. Why I'm talking about it? Well, as I already stated, every day brings us all kinds of things which we have to consider when you look at the actions of those people. For example, we know that now even New York Times begins to say that, well, evidence suggests that Ukrainian missile caused market tragedy in Konstantinovka. You remember this? Well, New York Times, the main outlet for the CIA and propaganda, is suddenly saying that, oh yeah, these were not Russians. Well, of course these were not Russians. Of course these were not Russians at Bucha, which have been arranged by SBU and CIA and MI6 as false flag, killed truckload of people there. And then you had all those low lives which work for the corporate media hanging around there making photos. Because it was, of course, Ukraine. It's their modus operandi. This is the modus operandi of the intelligence services in the combined West. They love to kill civilians. If they need to kill children, sure. They will kill, obviously, Skripal cats. That's that type of people who work there, because they are not capable anymore to produce normal intelligence. They do not understand how to collect the information. They do not even understand what this information means, because primarily most of them, not all, there are still some very solid professionals, but most of them are people with the humanities degrees who have no clue what the military, what the industry, what is the real economy of the 21st century is. And that is why I'm going to be arranging a meeting with, for example, this wonderful author, Dr. Fadil Lama, who wrote this fascinating book, Why the West Can't Win, and I'll try to interview him, and I don't know how the interview will go, because I usually am interviewed, but I'm not interviewer, but I will try to make the meeting interview with this fascinating man. He is doctor, he worked for the International European Bank of Reconstruction, and he is an outstanding economist, and he explains in the 300 pages why West can't win, because they do not have people who understand actually what is happening around it. And again, as I already stated, if you will take out average nowadays CIA, MI6, what have you, so-called specialists, if we talk about the specialists of the Circa 2023, they have no clue what they're looking at operationally, strategically, tactically, technologically, because this is the war and conflict of the 21st century. Those guys go into their university and read all those good, wonderful books on geopolitics, much of them irrelevant or downright stupid. If you look attentively at what, for example, Mr. Fukuyama or Mr. Huntington wrote, the same goes for Mr. Mearsheimer, despite the fact that he actually speaks sometimes some sense, but it's just basically, he speaks sense which anybody who has any degree of the intelligence can see now. But that brings us to the other thing. And when you begin to understand the desperation, some people are desperate. And again, people ask me, oh, you are being, critical of the United States. Of course I am critical, because I have vested interest. I live here. I don't want this country completely disintegrate and be soaked in blood of the Civil War. And when I see how the republic and liberty is being annihilated by the people in Washington who live in the barricades, literally, and you look at them, they are freaking morons. Obviously I worry. Obviously I need to point out, as do many people, when you look at the amount of dissidents, it's probably half population of the United States. And here we have this. Heritage Foundation is, it's a classic American think tank. That means what? They don't know crap basically about anything. But even they started to, write about this US military strengths and index. Index is what people do when they have no answers for what they are observing, and that is why you go, for example, shysters on YouTube, they go and create all those top 5, top 10, top 15. Top 5 tanks in the world, top 5, 15 porn stars, and things of this nature. So, because this is the only way to attract any attention, but Heritage Foundation actually would ask and for additional money and additional provisions of the funds for the military-industrial complex, even if the United States would have been the only nation on the globe. This is what they are. And again, when you read those, and those generals who write them, majority of them are shysters. They don't understand what is happening, but yet even they begin to ask some interesting questions. And when they talk about the scores, and they talk about that United States is in decline, which it is, and they talk about the US forces, which is in decline, which they are, but it's just Heritage Foundation, so they will be saying this anyway. But at least, and unlike this ridiculous report from Chatham House, is they begin to try to introduce some kind of the sensible scoring system. And here it is. Here's the scoring system they introduced, and guess what? I deliberately pointed out to you and underlined things which the answers for those questions are already available. And look what they say. We can see yourself, you can read it here, that various states that would play significant roles in any regional contingency. And basically you can read it and see yourself that underlined in red is the things which United States does not possess anymore, and it didn't possess it in a long time. The times of its linkages and relationship with the region and the major actors within it that cause the U.S. to have interest in the area or that facilitate effective operations. You already saw the issue of Afghanistan, how it all worked. So I don't need to basically elaborate on this issue. We can also remember obviously Iraq, and we can all remember Vietnam. And then they ask these questions for scoring. Do U.S. forces possess operational capabilities that are relevant to modern warfare? No. No, I am on the record for a number of years now. No, they don't have it. Even Pentagon now recognize that, well, real game changers, of which I warned from the get-go, are hypersonic weapons, their accuracy, their effectiveness, and then, yeah, as I already stated, if United States decides to really conduct any kind of the combined arms operation of scale, which United States still cannot do, so all command and control structure will be annihilated, and United States can do nothing about it. There is no air defense anti-missile complex which United States or NATO have to deal with it. They will not have it for a long time. Now, can they defeat the military force of an opposing country? Well, yeah, if we're talking about the opposing country as, for example, Iraq, they can. They cannot defeat anything which has actually modern sensor-based operations and actually serious long-range fires. As per Russia or China, good luck with defeating those. I mean, that will be a comedy, or rather tragedy, actually, which we all do not want to happen. Then, do they have a sufficient amount of such capabilities? No. And the point is, even if we talk at the theater of operations in Europe, United States will not be able to provide the flow of the personnel and material to the European theater of operation, because the only way to get it there will be, of course, by ships. And guess what? In case of real war, many of those ships will be sunk. And again, they have no defense against, for example, submarine force of Russia, not to speak about the other types of aviation assets. So, is the force sufficiently trained to win in combat and its equipment materially ready? No, it is not. And here comes this issue when you look at the score. Obviously, United States is not what United States Armed Forces is not what they try to present. Remember, Obama, the finest fighting force of in the history. So we have this issue. So now suddenly some people again, those anonymous sources citing an anonymous U.S. military official, the Agence France Presse news agency reported that the first Abrams tanks will arrive in Ukraine in the coming days, with the process to be completed within weeks. Sure, Russians actually are expecting this or anticipating this with a great degree of interest, and of course when you will see the first Abrams tanks burning, which they will, so, well, you know what, if American military-industrial complex haven't been humiliated enough already, they will have another round of, so to speak, of parading their American military equipment, which is absolutely not designed for the real serious war, let alone the scale which we see in the what's left of Ukraine. And so when you get this together, and when you kind of put this together, as you already notice, I repeat it all the time, is that the paradigm shifted so dramatically in the last few years. And in everything, in economics, in technology, in economics, for example, I again get you back to this book, Why the West Can't Win, by Fadi Lama, from a Bretton Woods to a multipolar world. It's like, here's my one of these basic skills. When I hear a person, economist or a PhD, some Wall Street Journal trader, he talks about, our GDP, immediately stop conversation. There's nothing to discuss with those people. They are morons. And that's, by the way, what is GDP over all those fake numbers from all kinds of the Chatham houses which write about GDP, or Heritage Foundation, or what have you. I mean, those people still live in this delusion that somehow, I mean, some economic pipsqueak which cannot even field, forget about army, they can barely field the Corps. Well, in reality, they have only a single brigade, which is probably capable of sustaining the combat for maybe 24 to 36 hours. So when you look at this, yeah, impress me. So, and that is one of those things which you have to keep in mind. We had this litmus test, and it exposed, it's kind of this little litmus paper which supposed to go, I don't remember, please correct me, I hate chemistry. I never liked it. So is it going green or blue? I don't remember. I think so, it's blue. It went not just blue, it went ultraviolet, you know, in terms of exposing the whole, I mean, rotten structure of the its both political system, its media, its technological expertise, and things of this nature, let alone military, which of course is all fake pretty much. And the only thing which United States has left today is, of course, its nuclear arsenal and world-class submarine force. That is obviously is still there, and you can always consider this as the factor of the international politics. But that will get us to whole other video or series of videos, which many people ask me to make. And listen, let me explain before I go, guys. Listen, I respect you tremendously. Again, if I wouldn't, you know, I would have behaved differently. But please, I am not working on the requests. Sometimes I consider what people say. Andrei, can you comment on this, on this? Sure, I can comment, but the point is, sometimes events overtake me and what I'm trying to do, and it's happening, which we know from the Highlander 1. It's called quickening, guys. We live in the world which changes so fast with incredible lightning speed that sometimes something fundamental which I wanted to present, I simply don't have the time because I need to comment, because if I will not comment, people will ask me and still ask me actually, Andrei, please comment on this, on that. So there you are. I am commenting on the events. I never thought I will become political commentator, but here it is. It is what it is. Let's deal with that and get the best of it as much as we can. So, and this is what I wanted to tell you today. And as always, guys, those who can and love what I do, please subscribe to my channel. Those who can afford, please support me on Patreon and buy me a coffee or two. All this data is, and you know, links, hyperlinks are below this video. And what can I say? Have a nice rest of the week for you guys, and I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.